Good evening, Buffalo sports fans, and welcome to another incredible week of sports, especially in Buffalo. It's great to be here. I can't believe we are in our third show of the Buffalo Huddle on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax, and I want to welcome our returning listeners and anyone who is here for the first time. If you are returning, I want to thank you for your patience as I worked out some technical issues, and looks like in the chat, Larry B is telling me it's super clear, so I'm very, very excited. We finally got it right. A little joke from Larry B. He's on a roll and it's not a Tootsie. What's the opposite of Buffalo? Buffa high? Okay, Larry, I think you need to go take your temperature. I don't know. I'm just saying. But I want to welcome everybody here. I'm really honored and humbled that you chose to spend your valuable time with me on the Buffalo Huddle. And I know that there are so many podcasts out there, and I have to say, you being here tonight means so much to me because I'm really just trying to kind of learn on the fly, as they say. But I am really honored to be here with IE Sports Radio. So what can you expect tonight? Well, you can certainly get Buffalo sports, and you're going to get a lot more than that because I like to say it's sports with a twist. I like to bring in the human element into our discussion, and I think that's really important. And, oh, Larry, such a nice comment. You being here tonight means so much to us. Awesome stuff. Well, Larry, I hope you're going to be around to hear my letter that I wrote to all our new and returning Bills and Sabres, our players, any Buffalo sports player who's here for any team in Buffalo. But before we get started with the show, this show wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. So let's take a moment to thank our first sponsors, Southern California Warriors, semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organizations. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get film, to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. Follow them on social media, Twitter at SoCal Warriors, Instagram at Southern California, I'm blocking here, Southern California Warriors, Facebook, Southern California Warriors. IE Sports Radio is our next sponsor, and they can be found on social media on Twitter at IE Sports Radio, Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and Facebook, IE Sports Radio. Visit their website, iesportsradio.com, for all the incredible shows that they have to offer. And for the last 7.5 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. And they're not done yet. They continue to expand. And all the while we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we're ready to take the next step. When you go to our website at iesportsradio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers. The first one starting at just $5 a month. And this donation gets you a chance to get a shout out on all 32 of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment with Larry B. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. And I want to give a shout out to our fan of the month. We actually have a Packer fan who's all the way from Mexico, and it's Marcy_Vargas 88. So congratulations to Marcy for being our fan of the month. So everybody has really had an incredible week. If you've been a fan of the NFL free agency, trades, the NCAA, hockey, just so much going on. And I've got to say that it's been really incredible, and there hasn't been a dull moment at all. For any new listeners out there, I like to start the show, the podcast, with an inspiration. And it might be a poem, it could be a quote. If I get brave enough, it could be a song. I haven't gotten there yet. But really, I really think it's important to provide content which helps to inspire you, the listener, throughout the show and hopefully throughout the week. Now, tonight's inspiration is a result of not just what we heard from new and returning players for the Bills. I was inspired from what I've witnessed, especially this week, from the Sabres. We'll be talking about them later in the show today, but they went out west, and they really had, except for one game, an incredible display of teamwork, chemistry. It's really amazing what we've witnessed, and we'll talk about that. So I felt inspired to write a letter. It's primarily to the Bills players, but I'm going to do a little shout out also to the Sabres players. Dear new Buffalo Bills, returning Bills, and those of you players who chose to stay with our team, and to our talented, young, and up-and-coming Sabres. Each of you have different reasons for choosing Buffalo as your team and your home. Some of you, before you got here or played here, maybe you didn't even know where Buffalo was on the map. You might have even thought you were a few hours from New York City, when the reality is we're actually much closer, actually a few miles, from Canada, eh? The reality is you are here in the second largest city in New York State, after New York City. We may not have fancy skyscrapers, we don't have a really robust nightlife, or we don't have warm temperatures all year round. We do have them in late spring and summer and early fall. But what we do have is heart, and the most generous fan base the world of sports has ever seen. Just go ask Lamar Jackson. Ask Andy Dalton. Just ask any of the players who've been touched by Bills Mafia's generosity. Once you are a Bill, a Sabre, a Buffalo Bison, our baseball team, a Buffalo Bandit, our lacrosse team, or a UB Bull, you are forever woven into the fabric of our community, our collective soul. Stay loyal to us, and we will stay loyal to you. We're all in this together, and we are all family. No matter if you play for the Bills or not, just being in Buffalo makes you a member of Bills Mafia forever, and this includes your family. Sorry, you're stuck with us. And you know what happens when you try to get out of Bills Mafia. You might have heard Buffalo's been enjoying something of a renaissance. The pandemic created a pause, while at the same time it allowed us Buffalonians to sit back and appreciate our gifts. We have a reinvigorated waterfront, restored architectural treasures, amazing sports teams, and of course, an epic food scene. Just ask visitors who've been here from all over the world, and they'll tell you we have some darn good chicken wings. Because yes, we are the home of the chicken wing. We're also home to beef on weck, and if you don't know what that is, you'll soon find out. Sponge candy, which is one of my favorites, and some of the best varieties of pizza in the country. Here in Western New York, we're about making memories and stories. We're proud to say the people, places, and moments that shape Buffalo make for great stories, and we're excited to share them with you. When you retire from one of our teams or you leave the area, please know we, the fans, will have left footprints on your heart. As Visit Buffalo Niagara likes to remind us, Buffalo's comeback isn't over. It's just waiting for you to come back. And here you are as players in the sports that you love. You're here to create new stories, lifelong friends, and lifelong memories. Welcome home. P.S. You also just might smell some Cheerios when you're visiting downtown Buffalo. Because yes, we do have General Mills, which every day you can smell and it's delicious. Just don't forget to bring your cereal bowl. Signed with Buffalo Love, Patty Backs. And there you have it. So I would like to welcome all our new and returning players that are here. And we're going to talk about what that actually means. I also like to share on my podcast some fun facts, some did you know. And the did you know is we don't say goodbye in Western New York. We end every conversation with Go Bills. And Larry's keeping me busy there in the chat, and welcome to Gina and everyone else who's joining tonight. And yes, we do have General Mills in downtown Buffalo. And every day there might be any kind of smell from any kind of cereal that they're making. It's amazing. You can smell it in all of downtown Buffalo. So my question of the day, which is another feature of this podcast, is for you, the listener. Now, if you were to rank from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, the importance of culture, team chemistry, team camaraderie on your sports team, the sports team that you yourself love, what ranking would you give it? So please give your ranking and maybe a reason for ranking it that way in the chat room. And I'll start us off. I would say that with the Bills, I think that we know the returning players have clearly missed the culture, the chemistry. That's really what brought most of them back. They missed that family atmosphere. So I'm going to give the Bills a 10 on the ranking. And for the Sabres, I would say probably a 9. They're not quite as high as the Bills, but I think what they're building there on that team is a team that kind of emulates what the Buffalo Bills have found, that chemistry, that team chemistry, that camaraderie. And it looks like Larry is ranking his team 10. So, I don't know, the Oakland Raiders, Larry, okay. They sure have been busy, very busy in the off season here. So, I think Larry's got a 10 for his team. So, anybody else who's listening in the chat who would like to put in a number, and again, it's a ranking from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. How would you rank your favorite sports team on culture, team chemistry, and camaraderie? So before we talk about our beloved Bills, and we are going to break for a quick commercial. So I'll give you a few minutes to think about your team ranking. So let's take a moment and let's go to one of our commercials for another just fabulous IE Sports Radio podcast.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
And welcome back. And Gina G, who is charging her phone. Sounds like an incredible show and podcast, so we hope you listen. Just like you're listening today to Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And it looks like we have a couple, we have another in the chat. I think that's Taryn. And he says it depends on which team it is. NBA 10, I guess. NFL 8, I guess. MLB, and it looks like A7, B9, MLS 8.6. So very high marker there. All right. So the Raiders, according to Larry, just signed all this talent. And he's looking for an 8-9 record. Well, we'll see. You know, looks good on paper till they get there on the field, right? All right, so before we talk about our beloved Buffalo Bills, I want to give a shout out to a band that recently played in Buffalo over the weekend, Arkel's Music. Now, I don't know if anybody on the West Coast has heard of them. They're a Canadian rock band from Hamilton, Ontario. And they performed here, and very, very impressive. They actually had a Josh Allen drum set. Pretty impressive. And they ended their set with the Shout song. Are you kidding me? Like, wow, that's a way to get the crowd. All right, well, let's get into our Buffalo Bills. What a week for this team and our fans. And while I'm talking Bills, I think Larry is having some fun with his Raiders. He's still in shock over all the talent that they've signed. But like I said, wait and see. So with our Bills, when we headed into the new NFL year, we were nearly $7 million over the 2022 salary cap. And that was really tough. It looked like we were going to be spectators in this frenzy of free agency and trades. And I thought, wow, it's pretty, it's pretty doom and gloom. But fast forward to March 22nd, 2022, and my, oh my, how times have changed. And yes, Larry, no one circles the wagons, thank you, Chris Berman, like the Buffalo Bills. But what Brandon Beane has done, our GM has done, is mind-boggling. In a short time, the front office not only lowered their payroll, but they became stronger at some key positions. Are we done yet? Well, every time we think we're done, as fans, something new happens. It's pretty crazy here, what Brandon has done. So how did we get here? Well, let's start with our departures. We lost guard Darrell Williams. John Feliciano went to the Giants. Wide receiver Cole Beasley, he asked for a trade. We were trying to trade him. No luck there. We cut defensive tackle Star Latulier, and A.J. Klein was also released. Now with Star, we're going to have to eat some of his salary, but I think that, based on his time of play last year, I hate to say he took up some space, but I think that's really what kind of happened. And we also lost quarterback Mitch Trubisky. We know he went to the Steelers. Tywan Jones, Ike Botcher, tackled Bobby Hart. We don't know what's happening yet with wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders, if he's going to retire or he's going to sign with another team. Running back Matt Breida, he went to the Giants. That was just announced. Effie Obada, we're still waiting. Jerry Hughes, we don't know if he's going to be retiring or if he still wants to play football. Mario Edson and Brian Cox were released. And if you were on the show last week, defensive tackle Harrison Phillips, my favorite player. He signed with the Minnesota Vikings, and boy, they're making some moves too. Justin Zimmer was released, and Vernon Butler just right before, I think that he just got signed. Did he get signed by the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken? I've got to double check that because it just happened right before I came on. And I'm going to just double check that here just real quickly because that was a really quick signing. I'm kind of surprised that he actually is signed at all. And yes, he did sign with the Raiders. So there we go, Larry. You got another one of our Bills players. And it looks like we have, okay. Thank you very much. Great letter. Oh, thank you very much. And we've got a 6 on the Bears culture. Yeah, I really like the Bears. And actually the Bills are going to play the Bears, I believe, this year, and I'm hoping to make a road trip. So maybe I'll see you out there. So for me, losing Harrison, as I said, hit the hardest. He's actually here in Buffalo. He's actually at a wing place, it's kind of a game wing place, and he's doing a Playmakers event, his charity. So even though he left Buffalo, his heart is still here, and he's still going to continue to do some work. He wrote a very heartfelt letter yesterday to the fans, and that was published in our local paper. And wow, after I read it, pass the Kleenex, that's all I've got to say. But let's get back to our team. I want to welcome some arrivals and welcome back some new contracts. We re-signed wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie, our face of the franchise. And for him, signing was all about loyalty, more than money. And when he speaks, Isaiah McKenzie speaks from the heart. I got to do a quick little story about Isaiah. On Christmas Eve, when he dropped off his dog to the doggy daycare, he went to get something to eat for Christmas Eve and couldn't find any place because everything was closed. He put it out there on Twitter, and a Bills fan invited him to come for dinner. Do you know that he actually did? And the Bills fan posted pictures of Isaiah McKenzie at their Christmas Eve dinner. It was just incredible. But that's, again, speaks to that human element of our team and our players. It's about family. Jake Kummerow, better known as Touchdown Jesus, who played with Aaron Rodgers at Green Bay. He came back. We have center Mitch Morris, who again talked about more than money. It's comfortability. It's being with players and coaches that you know inside and out. Cornerback Saran Neal, who's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, and linebacker Terrell Dodson. They all wanted to come back and be with us. And I want to welcome back defensive end Shaq Lawson, one of my favorite players, defensive tackle Jordan Phillips, who actually ended his press conference with telling Shaq Lawson, sign the contract. And then quarterback Matt Barkley, who actually was really a great mentor for Josh, and I'm sure he's ecstatic, Josh, to have him back on. A quick story also about Jordan Phillips, because you know me, I like to bring the human element here. Lorenzo Alexander did a cornhole event in honor of my sister because she was still alive at the time. And that was held at the field house, the Buffalo Bills field house. And it was going great and everything was fun. And some of the players were just coming out from the workout room. And Jordan Phillips was there, and I had made buffalo cutout cookies. And I was passing them out to some of the volunteers, and Jordan Phillips happened to walk by. And I had some extras, so I went up to him and I said, would you like some buffalo cutout cookies? And he said, oh, sure. And he took some of my cookies, took a bite, and he had a big smile on his face. So I might have to make him some to welcome him back to Buffalo. And the coolest thing about him, he told us that every Bills game last year, even though he was playing for the Cardinals, he was signed with the Cardinals. Every single game that the Bills played, he watched. And not only that, for the playoff game, the KC Bills playoff game, he was dressed in Bills garb for the whole game. And keep this in mind, he was still an Arizona Cardinal. So I think in his heart of hearts, he went for greener pastures and came back to Buffalo to where he felt he was part of a family. We've added, as I think everybody knows, our listeners here, Von Miller. I mean, wow. We're going to be talking much more about him on shows to come. And if anybody wants to see an incredible video, the Buffalo Bills PR does an amazing job. And they posted a video of his first 24 hours here in Buffalo. And there's a picture of him going out onto the field, kneeling down and kind of kissing the field and praying, actually. And it's very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. So he is going to really fit in. And when you think about it, you know, he was really being pressured to stay, you know, with Los Angeles. But, you know, Coach Sean McVay, he tried everything. But Von Miller really wanted to come to Buffalo because Bruce Smith, the legend Bruce Smith, he recruited him. He FaceTimed him. He tweeted him. He texted him. And Josh Allen on the golf course FaceTimed him. So we have a couple players that love to recruit, so it's pretty fun. So we also have Daquan Jones, Tim Settle, who brought his son into the press conference. His little son's adorable. We also signed Marquel Lee, who was actually on our practice squad in 2021. Tight end, O.J. Howard, he's coming from Tampa. He looks like a steal. I'm really excited. And then today we signed from Miami, Duke Johnson, running back Duke Johnson, and from the Jets, wide receiver Jamison Crowder. Could he also be another steal? I mean, Duke Johnson, his last game against New England, 117 yards. Amazing. And so with having two players that stay in the AFC East that are familiar with New England, our rival, you know, they can bring a lot of insight into playing against those teams. And then we've got quarterback Case Keenum. And the Bills are really smart because they made Cleveland pay for that $1 million bonus. But he gets reunited with Steph Diggs. He played with him in Minnesota. And we also have guards Roger Saffold and Greg Mance. So our GM, Brandon Beane, checked off all the boxes, except for me, I think cornerback. I really think that even though we still might sign a free agent, we probably could use another wide receiver too, but I think Brandon is really looking at the depth on our team. We still have Dane Jackson, we've got Tyrell Dotson, and he wants to really trust the draft, which looks like it is packed with qualified corners and receivers. Speed. I think speed was definitely the theme of the draft this year and will be. I just can't wait. And hopefully years past, except for last year we couldn't with COVID, but years past, the Bills open up the stadium, open up the field house to all of the fans, season ticket holders. And it's awesome because we get to be there when they announce the Bills signings. Some of the players get to come and interact with the fans. It's incredible. So we also lost Levi Wallace, but what precipitated Levi signing with the Steelers, that really all started with last week, on last week's show. I mentioned, you heard me say it, free agent J.D. McKissick was coming to the Bills. Guess what? I think we all know he reneged on his verbal commitment and he re-signed with the Commanders. I don't think I'm alone in saying that I have never seen Brandon Beane so angry at his press conference. He doesn't blame the player or the agent, and without getting into details, he clearly alluded to how he did the work for the Commanders. And other people said the same thing. I mean, Brandon did all the legwork. And the Commanders, who have some members in their front office who are very close to Brandon Beane, they really kind of played him. And this meant that the money that we were going to use to re-sign Levi was really tied up with McKissick. And wow, call it anger, call it angst, call it revenge, whatever it was, this experience really set Brandon off, and we know the rest is history. But what we do know is that they clearly solidified all the depth pieces to, in my opinion, maintain control of the AFC East and to compete for a championship for the third straight year and beyond. As we found out how important home field advantage is in the playoffs, that is critical and crucial. And I have no doubt if we played that championship game in Buffalo against Cincinnati, we were having a parade. All right, so not only this, I think we made some moves that have made us more of a betting favorite than we already were to win the next Super Bowl. So in the next few weeks, we're going to be taking more of a deeper dive into the draft and into looking at some of our new and returning players. A little preview of all of this. I heard an interview of Brandon Beane yesterday with Steve Tasker, Buffalo Bills special teamer, and Chris Brown. They are the co-hosts of One Bills Live, which is the Bills TV show. And it airs every weekday from 1 to 3. And when they asked him about the draft, Brandon said he's looking at the draft to fill holes. But what they always do is pick the best player available. And he believes there's depth in the positions we need. The only position I think, if it is the best player available, I don't think we're going to take him is a quarterback. Because, I agree with Taryn here. He says Josh Allen, Case Keenum, and Matt Barkley are the quarterbacks. Yeah, I think you're right. Case Keenum probably has the leg up, or the arm up, I should say, over Matt Barkley. So when Brandon was asked about the health status of the team, and that's one thing that really is attracting a lot of players, because they were healthier than any team in the league last year and the year before. It starts with the best facilities. I had the opportunity to tour the facility. It is breathtaking. It's like if I had that facility, I'd look incredible too. It's pretty amazing. It starts with prehab, making sure that we find the players who are willing to do the right thing with not only exercise, but with diet, nutrition. So maybe those sugar cookies aren't the best thing to bring to the players, but they can burn it off quickly. And we have more data now to design tailored programs. So trying to keep players healthy and extend their careers is really at the peak of what the goals are for Brandon Beam and the team that works with them, the physical activity team and our trainers. So as I mentioned, there's a great video of Von Miller. He walks through the training room so you can kind of get an idea of it. It's actually 2 stories, and it's amazing. So you can find that on the Bills website. And what is the human element in all of these players? That they want to come back, that they want to be here, they want to be part of the culture, they want to be part of the team chemistry, and they missed each other, the players that are coming back. But there's one factor out of all of this, and that is the Josh Allen effect. Clearly, the Josh Allen effect is attracting players far and wide to come and be a Buffalo Bill. So let's take another commercial break, and when we come back, we are going to hear from some sports, and that will be the Sabres. Let's talk about the Sabres. So you are listening to Patty Bax, and this is the Buffalo Huddle on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey there, sports fans. Are you looking for a sports show that maybe isn't 100% about sports?
Then you might want to check out the Sports Couple Perspectives right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Most sports shows cover only scores and stats, and while we're not opposed to that, we dig a little deeper into sports issues and some of the hottest topics in athletics.
In addition to sports, we take a journey through my neck of the woods, pop culture, with movie reviews of both sports and non-sports films.
Speaking of pop culture, make sure to participate in our game nights, where we quiz each other on our specialties, and you, the listeners, can win IE Sports Radio apparel.
We always have a great time learning more about each other's worlds, one show at a time.
So join us each week on the Sports Couple Perspectives, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to the Buffalo Huddle with your host, Patty Bax, on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. So let's talk about the Buffalo Sabres. And before we talk about the actual team and how well they're doing, especially the last 2 exciting games, let's look at what didn't happen before the trade deadline. So prior to the trade deadline, Buffalo Sabres general manager Kevin Adams, he made one trade. He sent Robert Hagg, defenseman, to the Florida Panthers for a 2022 6th-round pick. So fans were waiting all day on Monday. I was working remotely. I had the radio on, just kind of waiting before the 4 p.m. deadline came and went. And it was clear. We were not making any additional trades. So I think for the GM, Kevin Adams, he said that he was going to be speaking with teams, and he reiterated that at the end of the day. But it was about what was best for the development of the group. There goes that culture, that team chemistry, that camaraderie. And he was open to doing more, but he stuck with the plan. And he said, I really believe the next 19 games for our group are so important, because we know we have really stocked players in our minor league team, the Rochester Amherst. And down in Rochester, it's clear that Jack Quinn, in his last 10 games, he's recorded 20 points, 9 goals and 11 assists. He's only 19 years old. And it would be nice to promote him from the AHL and give him an expanded role with Buffalo next season. And I really can see that happening. The team has also some potential prospects that are leaving college, and we can talk about that in some future shows. But let's talk about the lack of activity prior to the trade deadline. I mean, Kevin talked about being proactive, contacting other teams, but he wanted to do what was best, and that's the growth of taking in consideration the growth of the players and that chemistry. There was some speculation about a couple pending unrestricted free agents, like veterans Cody Eakin and Veni Hinostroza, but that didn't happen. And then there was some talk about moving Craig Anderson, our goalie, who hit his 300th win a couple weeks ago, that he's a pending unrestricted free agent, but he likes it here in Buffalo, and so does his family. And I think that Kevin talked to him, and they decided what was in his best interest, and that was to stay with the Sabres. And if anybody's watched the Sabres play, I got to say, there's a player that we got from Las Vegas, Alex Tuck, who gives the most amazing hugs. And when Craig Anderson has a great game, he's right there to give him the first hug. It's just awesome. So we've had some really good games. We had one bad one. After the Classic, the Heritage Classic, the team went out west and they went to Canada. They played Edmonton. We're not going to talk about that game, although, I think it was a learning lesson. 6-1, we lost to Edmonton Oilers. Then on Friday, we played Calgary. What a heck of a game. It was 0-0 and went into overtime. I don't remember many games. I don't think any games where it's been 0-0 at the end of 3 periods. It was incredible. And the Sabres did win in overtime. Pretty amazing. And then Sunday, they had a game with Vancouver. And that was another incredible game, especially by Rasmus Dahlin. I mean, that kid was on fire. Ever since he was in the All-Star game, he is just, wow. I don't know if he learned a lot being there, it just boosted his confidence, but he's playing lights out. And then the Sabres will play Pittsburgh tomorrow night, actually right here back at home. I also just want, before we get into UB sports and UB basketball, I just want to mention that Jeff Skinner, who is a Buffalo Sabre, went bald for bucks today. And what that means for those that are not familiar, bald for bucks is when individuals who've been impacted by cancer, whether they themselves have had cancer or family members, friends, they shave their heads, or someone shaves it for them. And in this case, Jeff Skinner had some kids. I don't know if those were his children or some friends of the family. They shaved his head right actually before this podcast today. And then the rest of the players came and finished his shaving of his head off. And, they didn't shave his head off, his hair off. And we always got to bring a little humor here in the podcast. So it was pretty inspirational for me because of losing family members to cancer, most recently my sister. And at work, I actually work at a cancer hospital. So very, very inspirational that he was so committed to Roswell Park that he was willing to go bald for bucks. So thank you, Jeff Skinner. And thank you to all of those that are willing to do this for just finding a cure for a terrible, terrible disease. Okay, well, let's move into UB women's basketball because we want to make sure that everybody has time to take a quick break and then join us for our next IE Sports Radio podcast, which is coming up right after the Buffalo Huddle. What a week for the UB women. The Buffalo Bulls, UB women, the 13th seed, They actually had to play Tennessee. And I'll tell you, that was on ABC, the first time UB women have been on national TV. And they made us proud. They really did. They hung tight, and they took advantage of maybe having some breaks go their way, or actually having to fight against the refs, well, really calling some questionable penalties, but it is what it is. And one of the things that the UB Bulls had to fight against was the physicality, the superior height of the Lady Tennessee Volunteers. And they actually pulled away after the third quarter, and they won 80-67. So Buffalo finished the season with 25 wins and 9 losses, and they were 16-4 in the MAC conference. And what was especially tough is always to see when, the seniors are playing their last game, and that is true for sixth-year forward Summer Hemphill, who is actually from Western New York. And I think next year we have a lot to look forward to, though, because we have a junior guard, Deasia Fair, and freshman guard Georgia Woolley, who's from Australia. They're coming back next year. So Deasia Fair actually is from Rochester, and she was the 4th highest scorer in the country, actually, for women's basketball. So her name is going to be out there again next year, I have no doubt. And they may not have made it to the next round, but the Lady Bulls really had a season to remember. And their 16 MAC victories, it's a program high. Their 14 home victories ties the program record. And their 25 victories is second in school history. So kudos to all of the women Bulls, and especially to their coach, Felicia Leggett-Jack. And I've got to say, thumbs down to ABC, because they actually spelled her name wrong. Not only once, but twice on the broadcast. So that, knowing Coach Jack, she probably kind of laughed it off, but wow, somebody's got to do better with their editing. They've got to get Larry B to do some of the editing, because he's on top of it, of course. And one quick thing about the UB women's sports before we get ready just to talk about the NCAA in Buffalo and then begin to wrap up. There's a possibility we might lose Coach Jack to Syracuse, because she grew up in Syracuse. She played her college basketball at Syracuse, and she finished her career there as the team's all-time leading scorer. She's also the only Syracuse female athlete to have her uniform number retired. So, good question. I hope she stays. She's just a burst of joy and energy and enthusiasm and faith, and just a ray of sunshine. So hopefully she'll continue to stay. In Buffalo, we also had the wonderful opportunity to host the first round and the second round of NCAA. And our very own Larry B called on Saturday the Providence-Richmond game. Not very close. Providence won 79-51. But wow, Larry did an incredible job. And I've got to say, we had the opportunity in Buffalo to see some amazing games. A couple upsets on Thursday. But the loudest cheer at the NCAA tournament was for Bills GM Brandon Beane. He was there at the game. They showed him on the scoreboard, the big scoreboard. And he didn't look up right away. And then he got a standing ovation and "Let's go Buffalo" chants. It was pretty amazing. So as we begin to wrap up the show today, for those that have listened in the past and for those that are new to the show, I always end the show with a challenge. So last week's challenge was to reach out on social media to a fan of another team that now is a former player of your team to see how they feel about the signing or the trade. And I actually had a discussion with my cousin who's in Pittsburgh about the Mitch Trubinsky signing with the Steelers. And she said that Mason Rudolph is the current front runner to be the starting quarterback. But I told her, watch out, Mitch can give him some competition for sure. So in general, she said the Steeler fans were pretty okay with Mitch coming on board. For this week's challenge, this is about your team's chemistry and culture. So pick a favorite team. You might have more than one. Most of us do. But start up a conversation with another fan about the culture of your team. It could be a fan of the same team or a different team. But talk about the chemistry of your team, the culture, the camaraderie. Where do you see your team going? Where are they at? Where do they need to go? So going back to the question of the day, use that scaling question to start your conversation to see if you both agree with the number that you pick. And if the numbers are low, your conversation can then be about what is it going to take to move to a 10 for your team's culture and chemistry, to get it higher. What do we need to do? What players do you want to bring in? So on that note, I really want to give you the opportunity to kind of think about that, think about this week's challenge, and then really think about how blessed we are to be sports fans and to have such wonderful teams to cheer for, to root for. It's just amazing. And I am so blessed to be here in Buffalo with some great teams, some great players. On behalf of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, the Buffalo Huddle with your host, Patty Bax, I want to wish all of you a blessed week. Remember to join me next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. Tell your friends. We've got so much to talk about because this is Buffalo Sports with a twist, bringing that human element and all that is Buffalo sports. This is Patty Beck signing out for IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Until next time, go Bills. Thanks to all of you who've joined the chat tonight. Have a blessed week.